My name is Fredy. If you don't know me, I'm the pastor of young adults here. I am very committed to the Christian faith, and I want other people to be committed to the Christian faith. I think part of the Christian faith is that it is an invitational thing. It invites other people in to the same experience. So that question, like how am I experiencing, how do I understand my faith right now? It's a very significant question. So tonight we're going to interact with that through trying to answer the question of doubt and unbelief. So trying to define these terms, trying to understand them, and then hopefully from that being able to get to the place where we have a better understanding of what faith is, and then an invitation, I will give an invitation to step into the Christian faith. So we're going to start with just a little drawing. So I was going to have slides, but then I figured there's no way I could draw well enough to make it worth it. So instead I'll use the whiteboard. So hopefully you can see it. Glare's not too bad. So the Christian faith begins with the assumption that there is a divide between God and man. So the entire world then can be summarized as the human experience has either one of two options. There's faith, so people who believe in God, or there's unbelief. So people who do not believe in God. That's an E. That's the human experience. Everyone is on one of those two sides. And the Christian faith is by nature a faith that attempts to go and bring people from this side to this side. So there are passages in the Bible, like Matthew 28:19, that tell Christian people, so any Christians or any person who has said, I believe in Jesus, I want to follow him. And passages like that tell us, go and make disciples, right, of all the nations, teaching them to obey all that I've commanded you, and baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So the Christian faith goes in here and tries to bring people back. Everyone starts with unbelief, but it tries to bring people to have faith, to have belief in the Lord. There is a little bit more to this picture, though, right? It's not just, like, this is a very simple understanding of the world, right? But then I think the question that follows is, what about doubt? What if I don't know what I believe? Or what if I find myself on one side, but I'm not entirely sure that is in fact where I want to stay? So there is a spectrum of sorts where people experience what we will call doubt. And I'll define these as we get to them. But people experience doubt in the sense that they're not entirely sure if they're committed to the side of the line they find themselves on. They might not even accept that there is a line in the middle and there's only two sides. So how should we think of doubt? That is the question that I want to interact with tonight, because I think everyone experiences it. Everyone has some level of questioning about what it is that they believe, whether they fully reject the idea of God or they accept the idea of God. Every single person will have some level of I'm not sure. I'm not fully confident in. I'm still wondering. So how should we think about doubt? What I want to convince you of is that doubt is not a barrier to Christian faith. I think doubt does not prohibit Christian. Even if you have doubts, a person can still believe. So kind of to get there, I'm going to explain unbelief, I'll explain doubt, and then I'm going to define faith and obviously draw the conclusion, make the argument that faith is for everyone. So I'll start simply with the idea of unbelief. So this side of the line. So unbelief, I am going to define as the absence of faith or the rejection of God. And this is just the natural human condition. I think every single person is born this way. There is something in us that wants to learn, wants to discover, but the idea that there's this external person that has some sort of command over us or some sort of obligation that we owe this being, I think that's hard to understand. By nature, people are doubters or skeptics, right? We don't want to accept ideas. We kind of have to be convinced, right? So we have phrases like prove it or that's too good to be true, right? So natural human condition is people just find themselves, they are born into unbelief. And unbelief is the way that the Bible describes the human condition because it assumes that there is in fact a God. Right? If you read through the scripture, it begins with that idea. In the beginning, God. Those are the opening words of the Christian scriptures. So there is a God, but people are born not accepting that idea. people are born questioning that idea. So people are born on this side of the line, on the side of unbelief. And if you look through the scriptures will give even more clarity as to what helps people stay here. So why do people continue in this unbelief, this rejection of God? It's not just a passive act in that I don't think there is a God. Then it eventually turns into a sort of active rejection of God. It's not just that I don't think there's anything. It's I know there's nothing. And even if there was something, I'm not convinced your version of it is the right thing. And if you look through the scriptures, there are lots of verses that will describe the human condition. So there are passages, I don't have them on the screen, but I'll give them to you and you can look them up if you'd like. So there's a passage in 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 2, that describes people as lovers of self. That passage comes in the list of describing kind of the ilks of humankind where people say and do terrible things. And the things in that list are pretty bad. But that line in particular, I find quite interesting. So the human condition, like our nature of unbelief, the reason we stay there is because by nature we love ourselves. And the idea of God challenges that idea of self, right? There can't be two people who are in charge. If there's a God and I owe him something, then I can't love myself to the fullest extent of what I would want. So unbelief is this state of being. I think we have to ask the question, why does it occur? Why do we start that way? Why does everyone start that way? And why do people stay there? Well, I think we stay there because if we are truly lovers of self, then self becomes the highest end. We view ourselves as being at the top of the food chain, right? Like I am the person that is most in control of my destiny. But the Christian faith tells a different story, right? The opening character, or the first character we meet in the Bible, isn't a human. It is God. In the beginning, God. So the Christian Bible is already pulling away from this direction, away from the natural human condition of unbelief. And the entire point of the Bible is to introduce this character. So I'm going to read you a little passage. This is Psalm 19, 1-6. And Psalm 19 is a great passage because it opens by describing nature, and the entire purpose of nature is to shake people who are on this side of the line, to try to wake people up. So this is what Psalm 19 says. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the sky above proclaims his handiwork. Which is interesting, like anthropomorphic language, right? Like the heavens can't actually speak, right? But the image is that in the existence of the universe, nature is saying, this doesn't make sense. There is something more. There is something higher than the self. You may think highly of yourself, but you are not at the top of the food chain, right? You were born and you will die. There is something else greater than you. There is someone else greater than you. Psalm 19 continues, day to day pours out speech, and night to night reveals knowledge. So even the natural order of things points to the idea of a creator. So creation is saying something made us. Not just people, but everything you see around you. There is no speech, nor are there words whose voice is not heard. Their voice goes out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them he has set a tent for the sun, which comes out like a bridegroom leaving his chamber, and like a strong man runs its course with joy. Its rising is from the end of the heavens, and its circuit to the end of them, and there is nothing hidden from its heat. So Psalm 19 says, all of creation should tell you there's something here, and then even the path of the sun as it travels, or in their understanding, as it travels around the world, we know that we travel around the sun, but the image remains the same, right? As you travel around this light, that doesn't just give you light, but also gives you heat, that gives you light, it is a reminder that you are much smaller than you may have thought. So the Christian scriptures are trying to challenge, in just their existence, they're trying to challenge this idea. This is our default setting. We were born thinking, this is all there is. I am the best. I am the greatest. And then you open the Bible and you meet someone else. And then as the scriptures start to help you understand the world, they say things like, even the sun as it travels gives light and gives heat and is a reminder that there is more to this world than just you. The Christian story claims there is a God. And this God wants to be known. So how should we think about this condition then? How should we think about unbelief? Like, what is our experience of it? Or what should we think about our experience of it? So I think we shouldn't, this isn't a bad thing. Unbelief is natural. So every single human, I'm gonna draw a little number here. Every single human starts in unbelief. This is the human condition. I'll change colors for a little bit more clarity. The human condition is that we start in unbelief. Unbelief is natural. And everyone starts in what I'm gonna call hard unbelief. I don't believe, and I'm not even questioning it. There is no space for doubt of my unbelief. I know there's not a God because I'm in charge. I'm at the top of the food chain, right? I don't love using him as an example because I love him so much, but I have kids, and my son has no doubt that he's at the top of the food chain, right? Everything in his universe revolves around him. He is well and fully in hardened unbelief. He has no concept of other. Just from the way that he speaks to me, I know that he believes himself to be at the top of the food chain. The natural human condition is that we're born, we start to self-actualize, and we think, no, I'm at the top. There isn't anyone else. Everyone starts there. But I don't think we stay there. I think human condition is that we move into zone 2 here. Hopefully you can see that, which is this space of doubt, where we're still in unbelief, but now we're curious. Is this where I actually want to stay? So I'm going to define doubt as lack of confidence in what we believe or think. Doubt is lack of confidence in what we believe or think. The reason that we cannot help but move from stage 1 into stage 2 is because human beings are by nature learners. That is what we are. We are constantly consuming data, interpreting that data in an attempt to understand our world. Right? This applies to every single thought. Why would it not apply to the idea of God? Right? People may start as atheists, right? The idea there's nothing out there, but it's very rare that someone stays fully here. Everyone moves out, at least into zone 2, and some people can circle back and they're like, no, I'm super committed. I've done the study, I've read the books, I've been on the blogs, I've been on YouTube. There is no God. That's my view. And some people circle back to hard unbelief. But the vast majority of people kind of live in zone 2, in this unbelief, but they're not super committed to it. This unbelief that we would call maybe an agnosticism, right? I don't know what's out there. I'm sure there's something. I'm open to the spiritual, but don't know. There's some people that would be kind of monotheistic, and they would talk about a being or the universe, right? The show is kind of dated now, but if you've ever watched How I Met Your Mother, that's how they speak of God. They'll say the universe. The universe wanted this to happen. The universe didn't want this to happen. So people kind of settle into this space of unbelief. I don't believe there is a God, but I'm not that committed to that belief. I'm doubting. I do not have confidence in my unbelief. I'm now kind of open to other things. And the human condition is that as we interact with new data, we are constantly learning. There's a dead German guy who was a philosopher that it's called Hegel's dialectic, who talked about the way that we consume new knowledge. So we have old knowledge, new knowledge, they collide, and then we leave with a synthesized version of brand new knowledge. And that experience absolutely applies to everything, but especially to religion, especially to the concept of God. People don't just stay out here. They have to, by nature, as they're learning new things, as they're experiencing other cultures, other worldviews, you will interact with other ideas about the divine. There are not that many atheists in the world. Most people believe in something. And as you travel, as you read, as you learn, people move into this area of doubt. So this doubt occurs because it's really hard to be certain, right? So I define doubt as lack of confidence in what you believe. And if you kind of just try to sit there and think, okay, what do I know with 100% certainty? That is a very uncomfortable question to ask, because you will discover that it is almost impossible to know anything with absolute certainty. We can know things with a high degree of probability, right? But absolute certainty, there is no other option, that's very hard to do. And if you take that and you move into the realm of the supernatural, of things I cannot see, it becomes even more difficult. Let's take something really basic and see if we can kind of at least try to know something with certainty. Who believes that I am a Canadian citizen?
You're American.
What? I can be a dual citizen, so we'll take it. Fredy is a Canadian citizen. Do you believe that to be true? Give me a thumbs up if you believe that to be true. There's a lot of haters out here, but there's some people that are for the homie. Okay, so how would you know? So this claim that I made, how would you be able to check it? How would you know if it was true? Fredy is claiming to be a Canadian citizen. What would be a good question you might want to ask? That would be the best one, right? Let me see your passport. I'm like, I can't find it. Okay, then what else would you want to see? So if I can't find my passport, what would be another identifying document? What's that? Yeah, so an ID, right? So ID would work too, right? But I had a Canadian driver's license when I was on a study permit because I could still get one. So I'm like, I could lie. What else would you want to check?
Who was the first Canadian Prime Minister?
Oh my goodness. So I have no idea. Why would I care? Yeah. Oh, and I exposed myself. So this is a simple little experiment. But what I want you to see is any truth claim requires some appeal to authority. You're going to ask to see my passport. You're going to ask me, what kind of knowledge. I would have had to pass a knowledge test to become a Canadian citizen. Do you know basic facts about this country? And I'm like, obviously not. I only know American history. Right? So even something that simple becomes hard to know with absolute certainty. Right? So what about something way more complex, like the existence of a supernatural being that exists outside of time, that created everything, and then entered into time so that we could know him through the person of Jesus Christ? Like, oh man, that would require even greater effort. I don't need just one passport. I need a whole book. And probably more than just a book. I need a lot of time. Right? So doubt is this experience as we are entertaining ideas that are incredibly difficult to be certain about. So how should we think about doubt? If doubt is this idea, right, of this lack of certainty, then doubt is, again, another normal experience. And I think everyone moves into this space. The question isn't, do we experience it? The question isn't, does this prohibit faith? The question is, where do we go from here? Where does a person move from this space of doubt, from this lack of certainty? I don't know. I'm open to the idea of a God. I'm open to the idea of the supernatural, but I'm also kind of confused. I don't know how I could even know. I'm a physical being. How would I even know if I encountered a supernatural being? So I think people move there, but again, we have to move beyond that, which brings us to this side of the line. So faith is confidence that what I believe is true. So I'm defining faith as confidence in that what I believe is true. People want to move to something. So by that standard, even hardened unbelief is some measure of faith because that person is committed to the idea, they are highly confident that their belief that there is no God is a true belief. Everyone is trying to move to that. So the way I'm using the language, I'm saying faith would be believing there is a God. So confidence in that there is a God. Confidence in that I can know that God, that I can obey that God. So that moving from here to here is what I opened to the speech with talking about, right? That the Christian impulse is to go to people who do not believe and try to get them to make a decision, to try to get them to cross this line, right? Where they move from unbelief to belief, right? And it doesn't happen in just one step, right? There's a progression to it, if you will, where people have to believe, well, there's something, right? No one goes from here to here. They go from, no, there's nothing out there, I'm the top of the food chain, to, okay, there could be something out there. And if they're here, they might move closer to the line and they say, okay, well, it's not just that there could be something out there. I think there is something out there. I don't know what that thing is. I don't know who that is, but I guess there has to be something out there. But eventually, people get to that place where they actually have to make a decision, and then Christian faith, so Christian being Jesus Christ, what Christian faith is saying is you're accepting whole hog this person of Jesus, right? So that, I'll quickly define that. So the person of Jesus includes both the life, the death, the resurrection, the ascension of Jesus. So Christian theology teaches that God, this immaterial, non-physical, eternal being, entered into human existence, entered into time in the form of human, in human flesh. Right? So what we call the incarnation. So Jesus Christ entered into human history so that God could be known. If God is up there, somewhere really far away, and you can't see him, you can't hear him, you can't know him, then God would have to draw near for you to meet him, which is what Jesus did. God drew near so you could meet him, and then Jesus lived the kind of life that made a better world. Jesus was the kind of person that was truly kind, truly gentle, truly hospitable, who was morally perfect, right? Because the human condition is that we are not. If we are by nature selfish creatures, if you combine selfish creature with selfish creature, inevitably you have conflict. And Jesus wasn't that at all. Jesus was a selfless person. So Jesus lived this life, died on the cross for the forgiveness of sin. So Christian theology teaches that this selfish condition is what we call sin, and it carries with it a guilt or a debt that has to be paid. Jesus died on the cross, paid that debt, resurrected from the dead, and in resurrecting offers eternal life to all people. So faith is accepting that story to be true, is having some measure of confidence that that story is true. So faith happens when people make the jump. When people say, like, you know what? I think I'm more confident that this story is true than I'm confident that I should stay here. I'm more confident in believing something about Jesus than I am in saying I don't know or I don't think we could know. But it's a decision, right? And the scriptures are pushing us in this direction. John chapter 12, verse 32, these are the words of Jesus as recorded by the Apostle John, where he says, I, when I'm lifted up, will draw all people to myself. Jesus understood his ministry as trying to get people from unbelief into unbelief. He wanted to get people over the line, out of this space where so many people find themselves and into confidence that Jesus was who he said he was. So we have to get back to the question of doubt. So how should we understand this third zone? So once a person makes the jump, a person has made the decision, I'm more confident that Jesus existed, that Jesus says who he said he was, than I'm confident that he didn't. So people make that jump. Now they're in this space of what we would call faith. So I think the question naturally follows is what kind of doubt, what kind of uncertainty, what kind of confusion is allowed in this space? And this is why I wanted to interact with this topic, because I've had several conversations this year where the impression that I've gotten is that people think once you cross the line, once you make a decision, I believe in Jesus. I'm confident he existed. I'm in. I want to be a Christian. That it apparently is sunshine and roses from then on, right? That you just end up over here. But when you cross the line, you actually are right here. And if you look up here, you're still kind of in the doubt zone. And doubt is this lack of confidence. That actually, I'm not entirely sure I understand everything. I don't understand everything in the Bible. I'm not sure I understand every aspect of God's character. I've heard Christians say things that I'm like, if that is a required belief, I'm not sure this is for me. Christian faith, when you make that decision to follow Jesus, it's a very simple step. It's a very small step, but there's a lot of steps that come after that. And what I hope you understand is that there is still room for some level of doubt. There's still room for some level of questioning or of wonder when a person first becomes a Christian. And I think the follow-up question, if that is true, that there's still some level of space, is what about the rest of Christian life, right? So let's say, we'll use me as an example. I became a Christian when I was 6 years old. I was baptized when I was 9. So I became a Christian very young. I grew up in a Christian home. So it was something that was just part of my family experience. So obviously when I wouldn't have used this language because I was 9, right? Or I was 6 and then 8, 9, whatever it was when I was baptized. But I'm sure there were things I did not understand about the faith. If you would ask me, Fredy, are you confident that, pick any doctrine. Are you confident that you understand the idea that God sends his Spirit to live inside of you and give you gifts that empower you to do things for the good of others and the glory of God? I would have been like, what? I have no idea what that is. There would be things I just didn't understand, right? So when we say doubt, are we talking about lack of knowledge? Are we talking about confusion? Are we talking about lack of certainty? How do we understand that both at the beginning of Christian life and then as you keep growing in the Christian life? So to try to answer that, I'm going to draw a new picture. Blank slate.
Dang.
Come on. So I'm going to draw a new picture. So I think Christian life should be thought of as a little scale. This is -10. This will be +10. This is 0. And this is the line. So I'm going to add this to the graph I was using before. So that's the line of decision. Like that's the moment when a person says, no, I have confidence that Jesus actually existed, that Jesus was who he said he was. But you have to get there. And everyone starts over here in what I call the hardened unbelief, right? Like the idea that, no, there's nothing out there, zone 1, what we called. And if people are trying to move this direction, or people are kind of moving that direction, they might not be trying to move that direction, but as you have some level of doubt, you kind of move that direction. And Christian ministry is trying to convince people that, hey, there's actually good reasons for believing that Jesus Christ was who he said he was. And we are confident in this belief. We are so confident, in fact, that we will try to convince you of this belief. So you're trying to move people in this direction. And maybe they find this pen sucks, so we won't use it anymore. I apologize. We'll use red. There we go. So you're trying to move people in this direction. The goal is that if you are in fact confident that Jesus is who he said he was, you're trying to move people towards decision. You want them to choose. So let's say someone does choose. Do they ever experience doubt again? Do they ever experience lack of confidence in what they believe? I think so, right? That's my whole point. Like what I'm trying to get you to see is I think doubt is a human experience, just like unbelief was. And when we make the decision, when we choose to follow Jesus, we cross that line. We're growing in confidence that Jesus was who he said he was. But doubt is part of still the Christian experience. And people slide backwards all the time. We grow forwards. As you grow in confidence, you learn more Bible, you learn more theology, and you're like, wait, all this stuff makes sense. Like I'm seeing things click. I'm seeing things fit together. I'm reading the Bible, and there are things that I'm reading in the New Testament that are connected to things in the Old Testament. And I know these books were written hundreds of years apart, but they actually, they fit together really well. So I don't think this story was made up at all. I'm growing in confidence. And we also slide backwards, where as we interact with Christian ideas, we start to wonder, am I in fact committed to this? Because I'm lacking confidence in Christian beliefs, right? So a really common one in our age is, I interact with young adults all the time about this, is that Christian young adults grow up in Christian homes. They're like, I understand what the Bible teaches about sexuality. Sure, it makes sense. And then they go literally anywhere else in the world that's not their Christian church, and they're like, wait a minute, I think that was a little bit of a narrow view. And they start to slide backwards. They start to doubt. How do we define doubt? Lack of certainty in what I believe. And what often happens is they do this. They jump from here all the way to over here. They're like, I definitely don't believe anymore, right? Like, because I guess Christians don't know what sex is. The Bible's too old. The Bible doesn't make sense, right? But my whole point is, if doubt is lack of confidence in what I believe, you're simply sliding. And what a Christian ought to do in that moment is try to learn what the Bible teaches about whatever topic they're lacking confidence in. And if the Bible is in fact true, which is what first got you to believe in the first place, then the Bible will have something to teach about that. And I use the example of sexuality because that's one that comes up all the time. But there are manifold, there are many questions that people have. There are many things that cause people to lack confidence in the Christian faith. But if we're committed to the Christian faith, if we think, okay, I've made this decision and I don't want to be here, I want to be up here, I'm moving in this direction, we want to get there, I think the last question we have to answer is, well, how do I get there? Because the temptation of lacking confidence in what I believe is always there. That will always be true. I will always encounter new ideas that challenge what I believe, and I will walk away from that lacking confidence in what I believe. So how do I get upward? How do I grow in maturity to the point where I'm truly confident or strongly confident that what I believe is true, that I'm committed to the Christian faith, that I'm mature in the Christian faith? I think one phrase I want to leave you with, and I'll end with this, is that Christians who want to grow in their faith, or anyone who wants to cross this line and make a decision for Jesus, they need to focus on the man and focus on the book. The entire Christian faith is built on the person of Jesus Christ. So if you focus your energy and your effort on trying to understand this person, and you study the Bible, which teaches you about this person, that is how you grow in confidence. And rather than sliding backwards, you'll end up growing greater and greater in your confidence that what you believe is true. Jesus came to save people. Like, this is one of the most well-known verses in the Bible, right? John 3:16, that God so loved the world that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. Or God sent his son that God sent his son that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. The entire Christian faith is built on this person, and this book tells us the story about this person. If you want confidence in what you believe, if you want a true and lasting faith, you actually have to study that book so you can know that person that we believe in. The Christian faith requires evangelism. That's why I'm here. I think Matthew 28:19 applies to me also, that I have to go and tell people about Jesus. And I don't think people are always here or always there. I think people are somewhere in this space. But my hope is that as you interact with other Christians, you start to move further and further up as Christians are able to actually answer the questions that you have. The Christian faith has been here for 4,000 years. 2,000 years of Jewish history, 2,000 years of the church age. It's not like there's new information that we're just missing. I think there's great reason, I think we have great reasons, multiple, to be confident that what we believe is true, that Jesus was who he said he was, and that if we study the book, we can know the man and be saved.